Welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive. It is Saturday, May 30th, 2026, which, makes it the perfect weekend opportunity to really sit back and reflect on personal growth.
It really is. Weekends are great for that kind of mental reset.
Exactly. So, I have a question for you, the listener. What if the secret to overcoming your absolute biggest personal flaws isn't about, like, trying harder or downloading another productivity app, but simply reading a few paragraphs out loud to yourself for 10 months straight?
I mean, honestly, it sounds incredibly tedious at first glance,
Right. Yeah.
but when you actually examine the behavioral psychology of how human habits rewire the brain, it transforms from a gimmick into this demanding biological gauntlet.
It's a profound mental marathon. So today, we are unpacking a phenomenon that has basically been sitting on shelves since 1968. We're looking at Mandino's classic, The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Such an interesting piece of work.
It really is. And to do this, we've gathered a pretty comprehensive stack of sources. We have a detailed breakdown from Bookie, some historical context from Wikipedia, corporate application insights from a recruiting firm called Germer International, and this fascinating 13-year-long Reddit thread where everyday people documented their attempts to follow this book's intense instructions.
I love that mix. It's an ideal combination because it allows us to bridge the theoretical philosophy of Mandino's work with raw, modern, real-world application.
Our mission today is to figure out why a tiny 128-page book with the word salesman in the title is actually an enduring guide to psychological transformation. And to do that, okay, let's unpack this. We have to start by acknowledging the sheer misdirection of the title.
Oh, totally. The title is highly deceptive.
Right. Because if you pick this up expecting a gritty corporate manual on how to, close a deal or cold call a client, you're going to be severely disoriented.
The dissonance is immediate. You open the cover expecting sales scripts, and instead you find a historical parable. It's the story of a poor camel boy named Hafid living during the time of Jesus Christ, who achieves immense wealth through the wisdom contained in 10 ancient scrolls.
It reads literally like a fable.
Exactly, like a total fable.
It functions almost like behavioral scaffolding disguised as a story, like a Trojan horse.
Mm.
You think you're getting a corporate guide to crushing your quotas, but you're actually getting a deeply spiritual framework for self-esteem and character development.
What's fascinating here is how the mystical setting contrasts with the author's own life. Mandino was not writing from some enlightened ivory tower.
No, not at all. When I was looking at the bookie summary, I was struck by how dark his past was.
Very dark. Mandino's insights were forged in severe struggle. He battled intense depression, alcoholism, and devastating financial ruin.
He reached a point where he was actively contemplating suicide, right?
Yes, the sources note exactly that. His turnaround only really began after he discovered the writings of Napoleon Hill, which sparked this massive personal overhaul. So he wasn't writing a theoretical treatise on sales. He was trying to distill the exact psychological principles that literally saved his own life.
And those principles resonated on a massive scale. According to Wikipedia, this wasn't just some niche self-help hit. Ruthless, mid-century corporate giants, companies like Coca-Cola and Volkswagen, they purchased thousands of copies for their teams.
I think one organization bought something like 30,000 copies.
Yeah, 30,000. Why would a data-driven corporation buy a parable about a camel boy? Because Mandino pushes this philosophy that external material success is merely the logical exhaust of discovering your true personality and achieving emotional stability.
And the corporate logic there is actually incredibly sound. Even back in the late 60s, organizations recognized that an emotionally unstable, burnt-out workforce cannot sustain long-term revenue.
Right, you can't separate the two.
Exactly. You cannot surgically separate the professional from the personal. If you want to be a highly effective leader or salesman, you first have to master your internal state. As the book states, true wealth is of the heart, not of the purse.
But understanding the goal of internal mastery is one thing, right? The actual mechanics of achieving it is where the book becomes punishing.
Very punishing.
We have to move from the what to the how. And it all starts with the foundational law laid down in Scroll 1, which says, I will form good habits and become their slave.
That single sentence is the crux of the entire methodology. Mandino dismisses talent or luck entirely. He argues that the only functional difference between success and failure is habit.
And he follows it with a pretty critical observation about human behavior, doesn't he?
He does. He says, only a habit can subdue another habit. I mean, think about it. You cannot simply decide to stop being a procrastinator through sheer willpower.
Because willpower is finite.
Exactly. Willpower is a finite resource. You have to actively build the habit of immediate action to neurologically overwrite the old pattern. The hidden belief he wants you to eliminate is that you can just muscle through life.
So the method he prescribes to build that habit is the infamous 30-day rule. He instructs you to read one scroll, which is just a few paragraphs, for 30 consecutive days before you're allowed to move on to the next one.
And with 10 scrolls, you are committing 10 months to a 128-page book.
10 months. And the daily regimen is rigorous. You read it silently when you wake up, silently after lunch, and then you must read it aloud before you go to sleep. Every single day.
The psychology driving that repetition is vital. Mandino explicitly states the goal is to bypass the active mind and force these concepts to seep into the mysterious mind.
Which is his term for the subconscious.
Right. By reading aloud right before sleep and immediately upon waking, you are feeding the subconscious during hypnagogic states. That's when your brain waves are highly receptive to suggestion.
I picture it like carving a riverbed in your mind. At first, the new habit is just a conscious trickle of water. It takes intense effort to keep it flowing in a new direction.
That's a perfect biological metaphor.
But if you force that water down the exact same path morning, noon, and night for 30 days, you eventually carve a canyon. The water, your emotional reaction naturally flows there without any conscious effort at all.
The repetition transitions the behavior from a conscious chore requiring heavy cognitive load to an automatic process. You literally become a slave to the good habit.
I do have to push back on the reality of doing this today, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
In a highly stimulated world where we expect a life hack to deliver results by Tuesday, committing 10 months to reading the exact same 10 pages feels agonizingly tedious. How do people not just quit?
Well, it is agonizing. It requires delaying gratification to an extreme degree, which is why the attrition rate is so high. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding the mechanism of repetition is only half the battle. If you spend 10 months repeating a flawed philosophy, you just become highly efficient at the wrong things.
Fair point.
We have to look at the actual blueprint Mandino is forcing you to memorize, the actual text of the scrolls.
Let's actually break down that psychological toolkit. Let's go scroll by scroll. We talked about scroll 1, which is the foundation of habit. So what happens in scroll 2?
Scroll 2 focuses on greeting each day with love in your heart. It sounds like a warm platitude, almost cliche, but it's framed as a tactical shield to disarm hostility and protect your own emotional energy.
It's highly utilitarian. The limiting belief here is that anger somehow protects you, when in reality, holding on to anger has a massive biological cost. Love is presented as just a more efficient way to operate your life.
Exactly. And then scroll 3 is where the philosophy takes a really aggressive pivot.
Yes. Scroll 3 is the persistence mandate. I will persist until I succeed. There is a phenomenal paradigm shift in this section highlighted in the sources. Mandino writes, I was not delivered into this world in defeat, nor does failure course in my veins. I am not a sheep waiting to be prodded by my shepherd. I am a lion, and I refuse to talk, to walk, to sleep with the sheep.
I love that quote. It is a complete eradication of passive victimization. By demanding extreme ownership, he frames obstacles and defeats not as stop signs, but as necessary comrades in arms.
Like failure shifts from being an endpoint to being a required sparring partner for growth.
That's a great way to put it. And that reframing flows directly into scrolls 4 and 5, which tackle perspective.
Right. Scroll 4 forces you to view yourself as nature's greatest miracle.
Recognizing your unique biological and intellectual value. The modern application here is huge, especially for, say, content creators or startup founders. You have to eliminate the belief that you're just ordinary and replaceable.
And then Scroll 5 demands you live each day as if it's your last. Mandino specifically warns against wasting a single moment mourning yesterday's misfortunes. He asks, why should I throw good after bad?
It is deeply stoic. Dedicating emotional bandwidth to an unchangeable past is an irrational waste of present resources. Cutting the anchor to yesterday frees up the energy needed for Scroll 6, which, honestly, is arguably the most actionable chapter in the book.
Scroll 6 deals entirely with emotional control, right?
Yes. It's fascinating because it rejects the idea that you should wait to feel motivated before you act. It prescribes physical actions to change internal states.
Mandino writes, if I feel depressed, I will sing. If I feel fear, I will plunge ahead.
It's behavioral activation. You don't wait for your brain to deliver confidence. You take a confident physical action and the brain catches up to the body.
You're physically interrupting the neural pathway of negative emotions. I
Yeah.
love that. And then the final grouping, scroll 7 through 10, really solidify this action-oriented philosophy.
Let's walk through those. Scroll 7 commands you to laugh at the world.
One of my favorite quotes from the book is, "So long as I can laugh, never will I be poor."
It's about maintaining perspective, not taking life too seriously. Then scroll 8 is about multiplying your value 100-fold.
Which means realizing your value isn't fixed, you can continuously improve.
Exactly. And scroll 9, it's all about crushing procrastination, acting now.
The core thesis there is that dreams and plans are absolute dust without immediate execution. Action is the only metric the marketplace respects.
Period. And finally, scroll 10 commands you to seek higher guidance or faith, to seek a higher purpose rather than just doing it all for your own ego.
So we have this incredible theoretical framework, and we understand the intense neurological conditioning Mandino proposes with these 10 scrolls. But human beings are notoriously bad at sustained, unrewarded effort.
Oh, terrible at it.
So what actually happens when a modern, highly distracted person attempts this 10-month gauntlet? Does the riverbed actually get carved?
Well, the 13-year-long Reddit thread from the Get Motivated community provides a brilliant empirical test of exactly that.
Right. The thread was started by a user simply asking if anyone had actually attempted the 10 scrolls. And a user named I Read a Lot provided this stunning longitudinal case study.
They admitted to attempting the program multiple times and failing, didn't they?
Yeah, they couldn't get past the first week because reading the same paragraphs over and over with zero immediate feedback just felt, well, it felt foolish to them.
Which perfectly illustrates the friction of modern expectations. We crave the immediate dopamine hit of a completed checklist. We want the hack.
But this user eventually hit an absolute rock bottom. Unhappy with their career, their relationships, their general state of mind, they picked the book back up out of sheer desperation. And for the first 4 weeks reading 3 times a day, every day they noted absolutely zero difference in their behavior or mindset.
This raises an important question about patience. The threshold of neuroplasticity hadn't been crossed yet, and this is exactly where the vast majority of people abandon the practice.
But they kept going. And here's where it gets really interesting. Around day 50, right as they were working through scroll 2,
The one about greeting the day with love.
yes, a critical triggering event occurred. A coworker did something highly antagonistic, something that would normally cause this user to fly off the handle, react rashly, and engage in a massive argument.
This is the ultimate stress test for a newly formed habit.
Instead of exploding, the user reacted with total calm. They offered sympathy and understanding to the coworker. But here is the most revealing part of the whole story. The user didn't even realize they'd acted differently until hours later.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they were recounting the situation to a friend, and the friend said, "Man, you should have kicked his ass." And it was only in that moment the user realized their entire behavioral pattern had changed.
Wow. The mysterious mind had completely taken over.
It's like a background software update. The conscious mind didn't have to jump in to suppress anger. The subconscious riverbed had been carved so deeply that the reaction naturally flowed toward calm.
It is a perfect validation of Mandino's premise that repetition makes you a slave to the good habit. You literally default to the better behavior.
And the compounding external results were staggering. By mastering that internal emotional state, this user reported massive professional success. They originally picked up the book to help launch a freelance copywriting career.
And how did that go?
By the time they updated the Reddit thread, they were consistently generating $5,000 to $7,500 a month. Their social circle tightened, and the romantic relationships improved. The internal shift completely dictated the external reality.
It proves the book's core maxim that true wealth of the heart translates to the wealth of the purse. Self-mastery creates external success, and we see this identical principle applied in high-stakes corporate environments today. The piece from Germer International perfectly illustrates the professional utility of these scrolls.
But Sidney Grierson, a recruiter at Germer, wrote a piece zeroing in on scroll 3, "I will persist until I succeed." Now, recruiting is an industry built almost entirely on rejection and friction. You are constantly recalibrating, taking harsh feedback, and hitting dead ends.
You cannot survive in an industry like that without an internal engine of unyielding determination.
She applies the persistence mandate to both her professional grind and her personal life. She used the example of practicing her golf swing every weekend. The principle is identical whether you are matching candidates to a job or trying to straighten out a drive on the fairway.
Exactly. Action builds confidence.
She notes that a lack of action results in a lack of confidence, but persistent action builds it. You have to actively generate the desire to succeed, especially when the market is tough or you are just exhausted.
She is exercising her agency. When Sydney talks about passing this mindset on to her job search clients who are stressed and frustrated, she's trying to hand them that same agency. The scrolls don't offer a magic incantation to spawn a job offer.
No, not at all.
They offer a psychological framework to remain resilient enough to eventually earn the job. Especially now, right? I mean, think about how these principles apply in the AI age.
Oh, that's a great point.
When AI can write your cold emails or optimize your marketing funnel, the only true differentiator left is your character, your emotional intelligence, your resilience, your ability to connect.
It's a complete paradigm shift regarding how we approach self-improvement. If we synthesize the entirety of this deep dive from Mandino distilling the principles that saved him from the brink, to ruthless corporations buying tens of thousands of copies, to a Reddit user systematically recoding their anger, to a recruiter grinding out placements, the conclusion is just undeniable.
It really is. The Greatest Salesman in the world is essentially a masterclass in behavioral conditioning masquerading as a sales fable.
It reveals that external mastery is an illusion without foundational internal mastery. By systematically replacing destructive habits with constructive ones through rigorous daily repetition, you master your emotional responses. You dictate your actions. And that behavioral mastery is the true engine driving any external success.
So if you, the listener, are feeling stuck in a rut or trapped in a loop of self-sabotage, maybe the solution isn't another life hack.
Probably not.
Maybe the solution is finding a core, undeniable truth and having the sheer, brutal discipline to repeat it to yourself until it permanently rewrites your operating system.
It requires an immense, often uncomfortable level of patience. But the underlying mechanics of our biology guarantee that if you put in the repetitions, the transformation is inevitable.
The question isn't whether the mysterious mind can be programmed. The question is what you are choosing to program it with. What invisible script is already running on loop in your head right now?
That's a chilling thought, actually.
It is. And I'd like to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. If you were forced to write your own personal scroll today, just one single paragraph to read silently in the morning, silently at noon, and aloud every single night for the next 30 days, what exact words would you choose to program into your own mysterious mind? What habit would you choose to become a slave to?
That is something to think about. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.